I'm Tom Patterson. I'm one of the co-founders of Boston Global Forum, and normally at these events, it's my pleasure to introduce Mike Dukakis. But Mike is unable to be with us this morning. We got an email from him about an hour ago that his wife, Kitty, is not feeling well, and she's somewhat frail, and he was reluctant to leave her alone through the morning. So Mike is not going to be joining us. I'm going to try to do the moderation of this day, kind of thrust on me at the last minute by Tuan. So I'm not Michael Dukakis, but I'll do the best that I can. And Mike is going to call and wants to say a few words before we start. Tuan, is Mike on the phone? Or maybe just call him.
Hello, Mike. Yes, thank you. And yes, conference already listen your voice and your talk. Yes, we are very sad to hear about Kitty, and we look forward and we wish the best wishes for Kitty. And you now you can talk with conference a little bit. Yeah,
okay, great.
Yeah, and. We also invite Consul General to sit and to talk with you also, discuss with you on the phone. Yeah. And now, just Michael, please, you talk. Yeah.
Folks, I'm awfully sorry about this. I love these conferences and I love what we're doing, and I'm so admiring of the work that Tuan and our staff do that really kills me, but Kitty has had a very rough 3 weeks on the health front since we came back here. She began developing serious back pain in Los Angeles back in February. She had had 2 back surgeries 10, 12 years ago, which were quite successful. And then it started again and had it treated with shots and those kinds of things, which didn't do much. So we came back here looking forward to getting treatment here, and then of all things, at a big Greek event at the steakhouse, which I started when I was governor, which involves the transfer of the laurel wreaths from Greece to the Boston Athletic Association for the winners of the marathon. She began experiencing severe abdominal pain. We spent the whole night at the emergency room at the Faulkner Hospital, and it turned out she had kidney stones. So she's been dealing with that, was operated on for them about a week ago, and we're scheduled to see the doctor at the Brigham this afternoon, hopefully, to have the thing finished up and her back in shape, not her back, but to get her back in shape when it comes to the kidney thing. But it's been very, very difficult, and overnight, this past night, she was a little disoriented and in great pain, and I just, much as it kills me, I just couldn't leave her. So I apologize for that because I was so looking forward to our discussion and welcoming a number of really excellent people, including the Consul General and friends. And I think this is the first time I've ever missed one of our scheduled events, so I'm particularly apologetic. But I was just so concerned about her condition last night and even early this morning that I just couldn't leave her. So I'm sorry about that, and hope she and all of us will get back on track soon. But we'll get a full report from the surgeon this afternoon at the Brigham, and I hope it's going to be a good one. So then she can get on with the job of trying to deal with her back problem. So I'll be there with you in spirit, but it's the best I can do.
And Mike, just talk with Consul General here. Then he would like you can talk with him in private. Yeah.
Great.
Yes, continue.
Yes, Governor, I'm so sorry for the situation you just explained and convey.
Well, I'll see.
Ah, merci beaucoup. Donc, envoyez toutes nos amitiés à votre épouse et nos vœux de rétablissement.
Yeah, but I hope we can get together soon because I'd love to sit down with you and continue the discussion. And just very unhappy that I'm not going to be there with you today. But let's plan to get together soon and discuss these. And thank you so much for working with us and your government as well. But we're very grateful and very appreciative.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much, Mike, and we best wishes to Kitty, and we hope
Thank
Kitty
you.
will
Thank you.
recover soon. Thank you so much.
I'll get in touch. I'll get in touch this evening and give you a report from the hospital.
Yes, and as your email, and Tom will chair the conference today. Yes, and
That's
moderate
great. Tom,
conference.
thank you so much.
Yes.
Very appreciative.
And Tom will, on behalf of you, to present our AI Society G7 Summit initiative to French government on behalf by Consul General on Agno mentor here. Yes, so Tom will, on behalf of you, to present, and also Tom will, on behalf of you, to read remarks of honor to Vincent, one of Father Internet. Yes, as a world leader in AI Society today. Yeah, thank you so much, Mike. Okay. Yes. Thank you so much.
We can want to flip to the. Yeah.
So I need this guide because I'm not all that familiar with the agenda. No, that's not the agenda. The agenda, yeah, please. Okay. So Mike has already missed, obviously. Been up here a minute and a half and haven't said anything. So, but we have some congratulatory remarks from Nam Pham, who's the Massachusetts Assistant Secretary of Business Development and International Trade. Mr. Pham.
Good morning. It is a real honor for me to be here this morning on behalf of our most popular governor in America, Governor Baker. But also it's a real honor for me to be here. I was hoping that I could see Governor Dukakis. I wouldn't have been here this morning. I would not be in America if it was not for the people, the great people, compassionate people like Governor Dukakis and his wife. Many of you know that I am a former refugee from Vietnam. And this month is basically 44 years that we came to America. And Governor Dukakis and his wife during the 80s were among those people who actively and personally welcome refugees to Massachusetts. And he also, he and his wife visited refugee camps in Southeast Asia and sponsor Cambodians and Vietnamese refugees coming to Massachusetts. So I hope that Mrs. Dukakis will have a very speedy recovery. And also, I'd like again to say thank you for their compassion and generosity. This morning, we are here to talk about AI. At first, I'd like to congratulate Tuấn for bringing all of us together. This is the fourth anniversary that you're doing this, and it's getting better and better. Regarding AI, I'm not an expert. I don't know much about AI, but I know that we are all excited about the possibilities. We also feel a little apprehensive. It looks scary. Yeah. Artificial intelligence is something that we will see in every aspect of our life. If it were not already here. AI is not an industry, but it's something that will impact our life very much. And being in this room, in this university, we know that with all of the brain power of Harvard, of all of our people here from different countries, we will tackle AI without any issue, just like we have used other technology. But thing that I think concern me personally more than AI is human intelligence. Yeah. AI is being created by human intelligence, but whether or not we are intelligent enough to manage it in a way that it will improve our life and it would not be a tool for governments or individuals to use to oppress our freedom or cause more misery for human beings. I think that's the key issue. So therefore, I think the Boston Global Forum over the last many years has tried to bring attention, has tried to remind us there are certain standards, certain principles, there are many things that we should consider. So I congratulate for your vision. I also like to share with you a little bit about Massachusetts' effort, progress in AI. I first heard about the word AI about 35 years ago when I was a student here. And fast forward to now, we also talk more and more about AI. 35 years is still a new thing, right? And it will become newer and newer because the possibilities is endless. Number one. Number two, Massachusetts is also ranked number 2 in America regarding the development of AI, the kind of investment that we made into AI, the number of companies that engage in AI. Also is the people of Massachusetts who are working in AI. That's one example of how Massachusetts ecosystem of innovation has helped us to be one of the leaders. One of the best part of my job is the opportunities to meet and engage in discussion with people from different countries. This morning we had a number of distinguished diplomats joining us here. I often been asked what is the secret of Massachusetts that helped Massachusetts to be number 1 in innovation. And we can talk about, we have a wonderful educational system. Where we sit, there are over 2-hour drive from where we sit. There are over 100 colleges and universities. We have a numbers of world-class companies that bring their people, bring their talent over here. But that's not very unique at all, because other places, other countries also have a lot of good university, a lot of good technology. For me, the secret of the success of Massachusetts is our people. We have a very diverse group of people, not just from different backgrounds, different level of education, but the people who come to Massachusetts. Number one, they are risk takers. If you just look back almost 400 years ago, the Pilgrims took a lot of risk to come to America. But taking risk is not good enough if the environment, the ecosystem does not allow you to use your talent. So therefore, you need to have a place that allow you to freely think about your idea, to freely do what you like to do, what you want to become. The US national anthem, I like one sentence very much. Home, land of the free, home of the brave. In Massachusetts, we have brave people who are taking risks to do the new things. So AI will help us to improve our life, to improve our government. And it can do that because we have that kind of people. And all of you sitting here are representatives of the wonderful brain power, the wonderful diverse people that we have in Massachusetts. So with that, I again welcome our diplomat to Massachusetts. Welcome all of you from Vietnam, from other places to Massachusetts. We hope that Massachusetts will be a home for you, and we hope that your help will help Massachusetts to remain #1 state in innovation, one of the best places to live in America, and the best place for all of us to get together to improve our life. Thank you very much, and congratulations.
Tom Pham, thank you very much. Thank you for the remarks. Next, each year, this conference is really built around trying to inform the G7 summit, and this year the G7 will be held in France, and we're honored to have with us today Arnaud Maitre, who's France's Consul General in Boston, and is going to share with us some remarks.
Thank you very much. Well, dear friends, distinguished audience, dear Nam Pham, the Assistant Secretary for Business Development of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, a longtime partner of the French Consulate, dear Tuan, dear Nguyen Antoine, the CEO of the Boston Global Forum, distinguished professors, I'm very pleased to be with you to discuss this crucial issue of artificial intelligence. It has been one of France's priorities among the global challenges that we should address collectively, as artificial intelligence cannot be thought of in a purely national context. So I will try and give you some insight on the way we see that issue in the G7 context. First, allow me to say I'm very honored. Thank you so much, Tuan, for asking me to make a 30-minute speech on artificial intelligence. That's a very challenging task. It's I didn't find actually a speech writing software based on AI, so I'll try to cling. I think that's the dream of diplomats, I must say. So I'll try to cling on a very simple structure. First, to give you our assessment of the opportunities and the challenges involved in artificial intelligence. Second, on France's strategy, as it was laid out by a now very famous speech by President Macron on 29 March 2018. which is actually the basis of the efforts that are currently ongoing in the G7 context. And last, give you some insight on the international initiatives France has been promoting for now 2 years, in particular in the G7 framework. Defining artificial intelligence is not easy. Since its origins as a specific field of research in the middle of the 20th century, it has always constituted a border incessantly pushed back. Artificial intelligence refers less to a well-defined field of research than to a program based on an ambitious objective, understand how human cognition and functions, and how to reproduce, to duplicate cognitive processes comparable to those of humans. The field is therefore extremely wide, both in terms of the technical procedures used and the disciplines involved. We are talking about mathematical computer science, cognitive sciences, and IA methods are very diverse: ontological, learning by reinforcement, adversarial learning, neural networks. And they're not new. Many of the algorithms that we use today were developed several decades ago. But in recent years, artificial intelligence has entered a new era. This has been a very promising development, which gives rise to many hopes. And it was a very moving moment this morning when Governor Dukakis talked about his wife. We all know that AI opens a myriad of possibilities in the health field, which is so important here in Boston. And so we see that those opportunities is really what we call tech for good. Made possible by new algorithms, by the multiplication of data sets, and the tenfold increase in power of calculation, we see applications are now multiplying. It's about translation, it's about autonomous cars, it's about cancer detection. The AI development takes place in this massive context of datafication of the world, which covers all domains and all sectors: robotics, blockchains, supercomputing, and massive storage. The result is that now artificial intelligence will be playing a much more important role than the one it had been playing. It's going to become one of the keys of the world to come. Indeed, we are in a digital world, a world of data, which are at the heart of the functioning of artificial intelligence. These programs will bolster or undermine our ability to organize knowledge, to give sense to it, and to increase our decision-making processes and our system control skills. In this fundamental challenge, France has been an important actor thanks to our long-standing tradition in mathematics. We already have talents, we have excellence in training. Cédric Villani, who has just written a very important report on artificial intelligence, and our many other medal fields can testify of this long tradition. And I must say, reverence to mathematics that is so important to French DNA. We have talents in Europe in general and beyond Europe, and we want to build excellence in this field. You could see the results of French researchers and their realizations in synthetic images and in the most advanced theories that have allowed the technology of special effects. There's a great example of this with the headquarters of Dassault Systèmes, the global leader in terms of 3D modelization, which the headquarters are in Waltham, Massachusetts, for North America. So just now in France, we have research centers have opened for Samsung, Fujitsu, IBM, DeepMind, Google, or Facebook. These are clear signs of the capacity of our laboratories, schools, and universities to maintain and enhance this long-standing tradition for mathematics in France. In terms of data, France too has an edge thanks to its massive centralized databases. Sometimes France is being criticized for being too centralized. That's what we call Jacobin in France. It has actually a positive aspect that we should underline. We have highly centralized databases, in particular in the health system, and this is a clear asset to develop AI systems. These databases are among the most important in the world, and this provides us with major scientific discoveries. So let me describe the challenges of artificial intelligence as we see it. AI revolution will not happen in 50 or 60 years' time. It is happening right now. The new opportunities are being offered to us, choices are already before us, and we need to decide if we want to pursue certain paths of innovation. Should we put limits? Should we open or not the possibilities that are offered to us? So in his speech that he delivered on 29 March 2018 at the Collège de France, University of Paris Sciences and Letters, PSL, President Macron referred to an almost Promethean option, because he considers that artificial intelligence gives us the ability to perform infinite calculation ourselves. And indeed, through learning machines, we are now increasingly able to travel much faster the paths of misfortune, and in the end, to choose the right path much quicker and much earlier and much faster. So it's an enormous responsibility that we have in our hands. And in his speech, President Macron actually set some basic principles. The first principle we need to agree on is that we should not be afraid and refuse change. I think it's crucially important because you will hear many French people talk about the challenges of AI. I think here there's a linguistic aspect. For us, challenges is actually positive. Défi in French is something we need to overcome. We see it as a very positive, I guess it's a tradition that dates back to Napoleon. But I understand that in English you should always add opportunities and challenges to insist on the positive aspect of artificial intelligence. So allow me always to refer to challenges, but bearing in mind that these are opportunities. Because indeed our president said that we need absolutely to open the way for all the innovation, the best innovations that artificial intelligence make possible. Secondly, he underlined that we should not be naive and consider that change and technological innovation will in itself bring the conditions for its own regulation. And therefore, we should not believe that the AI per se will bring its proper articulation with the common good. We all know this is not true. In many other fields, we live in a world that is full of the excesses linked to the negative externalities of contemporary changes, and climate change is a very important example of that. With those two principles in mind, President Macron has defined a strategy with three main objectives, and this strategy was inspired by the report written by Cédric Villani, so one of our main mathematicians, and now a member of our National Assembly, and the president, the chair of our Office for Scientific Issues in the National Assembly. So the first objective is to put us, that is France and Europe, because we don't make a distinction nowadays between France and Europe. We really see ourselves as a driving force, but also part of that exciting project which is Europe. We should put us in a position to build, or rather to strengthen, the artificial intelligence ecosystem in France and in Europe, in particular with regard to talent. To that end, a national program for artificial intelligence has been defined. It is a large network connected to the French university research ecosystem as a whole, and monitored by our leading and quite famous research institution in computer sciences, which is INRIA. The second axis is about data. We will implement a strong policy of data openness in order to encourage the emergence in France and in Europe of the champions of artificial intelligence. I will come back to data protection, which is really a key issue in that field. And our third objective is to create common ground at the international level to foster the necessary discussion on political and ethical issues related to artificial intelligence. We need to initiate a common reflection, common rules, common understandings, and basically a common approach among powers of goodwill. Artificial intelligence, as I said, is transnational in its essence. It all depends on a certain size of a market. So the question is before us if there is in the world any large economy that can be large enough to define itself the next rules of artificial intelligence, or whether it should be a coalition of economies that can define those rules. Or the question is is to choose between being a norm setter or a norm taker in this field. Let me give you one example which is absolutely key when it comes to artificial intelligence, and that is data protection. At the same time as we open the data, which as I said is key in our strategy to develop European and French champions in the field of artificial intelligence, we need to think about the global framework. Because one of the challenges of artificial intelligence is precisely to make a clear distinction between the use of aggregated data on the one hand and the intrusion into personal data on the other hand. And we firmly believe in France that a clear line can be drawn between these two aspects. It is not true that the use of aggregated data involves intrusion into personal data. It is up to us as lawmakers, as experts, as companies to strike the appropriate balance between these two legitimate concerns. This requires very precise regulations, which, without preventing scientific developments, preserve anonymity and what is the secret of the individual. So the European Union has done a tremendous work on this, and we hail the action of Europe in that field. With its general data protection regulation, the EU has defined a very clear position at the end of a very complex process to take on board all the concerns and all the legitimate interests. It entered into force in May 2018, and it has already produced results. But in France, we think we should go further. We must take next steps to build a common understanding that will make it possible to open up data control by ensuring the protection of each individual. We want a framework that allows all industrialists and innovators to develop fully their activities and their potential, but at the same time that is transparent and fair to each citizen. Data protection is only one aspect of the question. Recently, many other questions have emerged in the public debate about the impact of artificial intelligence. We should not immediately think in terms of regulation, but a profound reflection remains necessary today to better understand the upheavals of tomorrow. Digital actors are gradually moving in these directions. We see that Google is beginning to recruit philosophers. University research centers on internet law are adding on ethical research dimensions, and more generally, an interdisciplinary approach is now more and more prevalent when it comes to discussing artificial intelligence. As the Villani report proposes, it is a question of giving architects of tomorrow's society the conceptual tools to identify and responsibly confront the ethical and moral problems. To give you concrete examples, the Cultural Service of my Consulate General have been working in collaboration with Boston University for a series of workshops on the implications of artificial intelligence and the interdisciplinary approach that we could adopt. A first conference on artificial intelligence entitled Getting to Know You, What Are the Prospects for People's Emotional Relationships with Robots, took place in November with 2 Boston University professors, one from the College of Communication and one from the Department of Philosophy, and 2 research professors in philosophies from Paris 8 University. It shows that an interdisciplinary approach, bringing together specialists of computer sciences and philosophy, can produce results. After that, a 2-day conference on the themes Human Community and Perpetual Contact and Should Robots Be Our Friends was organized in Boston University on 10 and 11 April 2019 with many researchers, American, French, and other researchers coming from different backgrounds. So now allow me to dwell on the ethical and political issues as we see them at stake for artificial intelligence. Artificial intelligence is nothing more than the combination of 3 dimensions. First, the project that artificial intelligence programs serve. Second, the conditions defined by those who programmed it. And third, the data provided to those artificial intelligence programs. Each of these aspects have political and ethical implications. We can see the consequence and sometimes the backlash when these choices are not taken in a broad framework, bringing together all stakeholders, or if they are left to one company itself, or even worse, to an autocratic system. So at the core, a core issue for us, liberal democracies, is therefore to define the appropriate framework in which all stakeholders can bring their part of that question. To do this, we need to bring both transparency and fairness into the system. Transparency, that is to make algorithms public, ensure that they are used transparently, track down their biases, and not give a monopoly on decision making, but on the contrary, to commit to enriching or supplementing them with human decision. I'll just give you one example. There was a debate in France about the software that made it possible to define for each student which university he or she will attend the year after. And many citizens questioned actually the software behind that procedure. And we see that there's a real issue of accountability for liberal democracies, because our citizens will ask more and more the reasons, the basis on which an individual choice was made for them. And it's crucially important that our governments, our local entities, be able to explain the reasoning that is behind those softwares. In this way, we think we will gradually build the ethical codes that will accompany these essential uses. But again, the global idea is to take all the opportunities offered by artificial intelligence and bring a collective debate, a sound and reasonable debate on the best way to address the challenges and opportunities involved. At the heart of this reflection, we must include commitments of social, ethnic, and sexual non-discrimination. And here I'd like to share with you a very personal comment. I was very struck during all those seminars we organized with Boston University. Actually, in Europe, the question of artificial intelligence is first seen as a question about data protection. And here in the US, I think the crucial issue is more about biases within artificial intelligence programs, and especially gender biases that can be at the core of artificial intelligence programs. I think I don't see it as an opposition. I think, on the contrary, it's a great discussion we can have, because the two issues exist, basically. And it's great that the Europeans bring their concerns about data privacy, and that the Americans bring their concerns about the biases. I think it's that way that we can have a very fruitful dialogue. So it's precisely the subject we would like to discuss at the European level. And I would like to welcome here the presence of a member of the European Commission, which is a great partner and a driving force for those exciting European projects that are on the table right now. And we also would like to bring them at the international level. At the international level, our efforts started in collaboration with our Canadian partners. This is maybe not known as well as it should. I actually followed those bilateral exchanges quite intensively, because before coming to Boston, I was the Deputy Assistant Secretary for North America. And so I was following the bilateral relations with the US, but also with Canada. And it is in that time that we started these very productive talks with our Canadian friends on what we could do in terms of international initiatives on artificial intelligence. The idea of creating an international panel on artificial intelligence was first announced in June 2018 by President Macron and by Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau. The announcement of the creation of such a panel was repeated on December the 6th, 2018, by the French-Canadian innovation ministers, Navdeep Bains and Mounir Majoubi, in Montreal, at a very large G7 multi-party conference on AI that was convened by our Canadian partners and friends. The objectives of such a panel, international panel project, is to consolidate a humanistic vision of AI based on the respect for human rights and democratic values. And the idea is to create an internationally recognized organization dedicated to AI. This organization will bring together the work of experts on artificial intelligence and its impact to constitute the reference point of international reflection on AI based on the IPCC model, the International Panel on Climate Change. It should be recalled that the IPCC was created back in 1988 as a G7 initiative. And we firmly believe that in the field of AI, we need such a central, such a reference point, such a focal point, so that the international community as such can have a reference point to discuss these issues. The International Panel on Artificial Intelligence is therefore a Franco-Canadian initiative whose implementation has been monitored since October 2018 by a Franco-Canadian task force. But this bilateral work, which has already produced results with a joint declaration summarizing principles and values and a draft organizational structure for the new entity, will now be complemented by adding the efforts of our other very close partners, and in particular the European Commission, which has also launched its own reflection on artificial intelligence and the international initiatives that could be launched, and our European partners, member states. The field of expertise of this international panel that we are gradually settling will be broader than ethical issue. The idea is that such a panel should help mobilize existing knowledge to identify how artificial intelligence can contribute to solving major issues, that is health, education, poverty, climate, and other fundamental issues. The group will build on the work done by international organizations, states, civil society, and the scientific community. So again, the objective of this initiative is not to come directly to some kind of regulation, the objective of such an initiative is to create the framework in which the opportunities and the challenges can be identified, and the way we can define the space for these initiatives to be launched, and for all the opportunities to be grasped, but also to understand the challenges, to have a common understanding of the challenges. The Franco-Canadian statement stresses that this group of experts will be open to all countries that share the idea of an artificial intelligence model that is neither solely for profit nor solely for control, but also for human development and for the planet. In particular, France intends to have Japan and the European Union join this initiative. The objective is now to define the organization, its governance, and its financing, as well as the first members, by the summer of 2018. And at that time, so it's coming very soon, France plans to organize a major world scientific conference on artificial intelligence. With Canada's support, France placed this International Panel on Artificial Intelligence initiative on the agenda of its G7 presidency, thus opening a multilateral negotiation process with the other 5 member countries. That is the US, Japan, Italy, Germany, the United Kingdom, but also the European Commission, which is part of the G7, and our 4 invited countries, South Africa, Australia, Chile, and India. Negotiations under the French presidency of the G7 will take 2 complementary and successive paths. First, a ministerial meeting of the G7 digital ministers will take place on May the 15th, 2019, and it will be a preparatory step during which the governance, priorities, and composition of the panel will be discussed on the basis of the bilateral Franco-Canadian work. And second, the summit of the heads of state in Biarritz on 24-26 August will discuss this initiative and its parameters when it comes to the composition, principles, governance, and financing of such an initiative. So again, we will launch it on a bilateral basis, but we are expanding this bilateral initiative in the G7 context, in the European context, and with all like-minded partners that want to be part in it. After Biarritz, an international forum on artificial intelligence will be held on 29 and 30 October, at which the panel steering committee could be convened for the first time. In the autumn of 2019, the steering committee will develop the terms of reference for the G2IA, so that the first plenary meeting, a group, can be held in spring 2020. I've been a bit too long, I'm sorry for that. Again, it's a very important and a very fascinating initiative, so I wanted to share with you all the details about it. As we see, we are in a crucial and exciting time for all the powers of goodwill that want to be part of these global efforts to define the framework of tomorrow's artificial intelligence. So I look forward to our discussion today, and I will be pleased to stay in close contact with all of you if you're interested in having more details about the run-up to the G7 Biarritz Summit at the end of August. Thank you so much.